welcome. I'm bringing Brooklyn in the house. Come on in.
Okay, cameras are speeding.
I started this show in 2009 with Brooklyn Savvy set in different living rooms. So the best way to celebrate 20 seasons is to bring it home, literally. I wanted to create a safe space to have uncomfortable yet transformative conversations that move people, amplifying the voices of those who are underrepresented and who inspire positive change. I'm Toni Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy. There is an incredible value in a stable relationship. And there's a lot of reasons that marriage works, and I'm just going to be real frank with you. Economical, right? Two people can pull together a life that sustains families. I really think that marriage is for family. I hear friends say, oh, why should we stay together for the children? I need to be happy. Guess what? I feel you should stay together for the children, right? I mean, isn't that fundamentally what this whole institution is about? Now, I'm kind of old school, but I see a benefit in being able to merge assets, have a life that is sustainable, be able to raise productive children. It takes two. Now, of course, there may be instances where that doesn't work out. I'm not saying that you can't raise good kids, but I'm just saying that there's a benefit to being married. 90% of married heterosexual relationships are interracial, and I think it's about time. But us loving each other is not new. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't some kind of interracial something happening over time. I am for interracial relationships, and this is what I mean. I'm for people loving the character of someone. I'm for people loving the essence of someone, and your skin color doesn't necessarily inform those things. So I think that you should love who you want to love. And quite honestly, I'm going to be really Pollyanna about this. I think that the world would be a much better place if people just gravitated to those that they have common interests with, that they share similar values with. That's how I feel. I think it's a better place.
Interracial relationships and marriage are becoming more common in the United States, and it's reflected here in Brooklyn. Clearly, racial mixing has occurred in America since colonial times. In fact, America's first mulatto child was born in 1620. However, when slavery of blacks was institutionalized in the United States, anti-miscegenation laws surfaced, which barred and stigmatized such unions. Today's episode will explore these relationships and how societal influences have changed our thinking about mixed marriages. Our guests today are Yolan Nicholson, who is currently involved in an interracial relationship, and Steve Witt, author of a new book, American Moses, will share his experiences having been married to a Jamaican American wife, and you will want to stay and hear this. It's a real tell-all, okay, people? It's a real tell-all. Okay?
You know, one of the classic and one of the turning points in our history is the Emmett Till case, who whistled, you know, the 14-year-old boy in 1955 who was killed for whistling at a white woman.
In Mississippi.
In Mississippi.
Right.
Came visiting from Chicago, you know, for the summer, and this happens. And so that started a process of, you know, be careful how you talk to white women, particularly among black boys, and that's how they were socialized. And so that has continued, you know, throughout the years. And so things are definitely different now.
But what I found really interesting was just back in October, and I think, Denise, you and I were talking about that, with that Louisiana couple that wanted to get married, and then the justice of the peace says no go.
That was a very, very shocking, but also perhaps are we changing quickly enough? Because this seems like a blast from the past.
Right.
Who is this person? Because that's his belief that the races shouldn't mix.
Right.
I mean, this is a justice of the peace who refused to marry a young couple so much in love.
Why you decided to be involved interracially?
Well, I didn't decide to be involved interracially.
So it wasn't a decision, just kind of happened.
Well, actually, quite frankly, I actually, you know, was one of those women who loved the blacker the juice, the sweeter the berry kind of thing.
Right. Wait a minute. But the man that you're romantically involved with is a white guy. So where's his?
I just happened
So what shifted?
What shifted was I walked into an event one day, and sparks flew, and it was just unexpected. And I actually had decided to stop dating because I had just gotten out of a very bad relationship, and I thought, listen, this takes up too much energy. I raised my son alone. Every time you get into a relationship, it's too much drama, and you get distracted. And 6 months later, I walk into an event, and he's hanging out with some colleagues, and an hour later, I thought, there's something happening, and he'll call me in the morning, and I realized that, and he did, and something happened for him.
Was he the first white man you ever dated?
He was the 8th man I've dated. I just...
So you're really saying, you're looking at this man as the man that he is. Give us a quick run through so that people can kind of be up to speed on what it is we're going to be talking about.
American Moses, a novel about a secular Jewish man from the Midwest and his...
No resemblance to you, of course.
No resemblance to me. and his Jamaican-American wife, and they lead a group of Jews from New York to Las Vegas.
Because a synagogue burns down,
Because
right?
a synagogue burned down.
In the South.
No, in New Jersey, in New York, upstate New York. Right.
And that town, by the way, also had the last lynching of a black man in the North.
My question was, why did the synagogue, what was your motive? Let's start here. What was your motivation for writing this book?
My motivation was, part of it was a catharsis because I was going through a tough time with my marriage. And when I got the idea for the book, I learned that Moses' wife was a black woman.
A Cushite?
Cushite in the
Right.
Bible.
A black woman. Had to do that, viewers. Anyway.
It's all right. So anyway, my marriage was breaking apart, so I ran away to Las Vegas. And I'm a journalist. I got a job in Vegas, and then I tried to make up with my wife, and I drove back. And when I drove back, I got this idea about allegory, a fiction book about a guy that's a little bit troubled, and him and his wife and their kids, they go from New York to Las Vegas. And so far as the synagogue burning down, being from Chicago, I grew up in a place called Skokie.
Yeah, I know Skokie.
Oh, yeah.
And in the 70s, Nazis marched through there.
Yes, right.
And I've had some Jewish people say, how can you do that? There's no such thing as a Jewish American diaspora. And I felt, when you grow up in the Midwest as a Jew, it's different than a New York City Jew.
Right.
You face a little bit, it's a different kind of anti-Semitism. And you don't have the backing that you have in New York City.
But you said that there was some true, at least what I wrote on the back cover, that there are some pieces of it that are based on some true things that happened.
I've always thought you write what you know.
Not good for
Yeah, I got it.
Right.
But we're gonna come on back to Zippy now.
Sorry,
It's time to go
Sorry
into
about
Zippy.
that.
Now, Zippy, that's the wife. My question is, victim of incest. Why? Why was that important in your writing of this book?
Right.
When I first fell in love with my wife, who I'm still married, we're separated, but we're still married. When she told me early in the relationship that she was physically and sexually abused,
I see.
I thought, well, I love you. We'll get through this. I think Zippy's the major character in the book.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Although I don't think she's a protagonist. I think Southie is the man,
Right.
but Zippy is the most interesting
They're all
character.
damaged.
Yeah.
They're
I
all
don't-
damaged.
And
they're all
dysfunctional.
damaged.
Right.
Well, I think, everybody's dysfunctional.
Right, and we're all damaged, all right?
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Are they very real?
There you go.
We should not condemn each other for loving each other, right? I wanted to create space for Audrey and Gail to share their love story because it's authentic. It's authentic.
We are delighted to have two phenomenal women as our guests today. We have Audrey Schmaltz and we have Gail Marquis. Now, our audience will find out just how marvelous you are, but there's another aspect of your story that we're going to be sharing too, which is the fact that both of you are married. So
To each other.
That's it. But
what is so compelling and courageous, to my way of thinking about the both of you, is that you all decided to exchange vows. So Audrey, you know, for the longest, for a period of time, you had other relationships with men. How did this all happen?
We are all on a journey. And this is a part of my journey. So at 61 years old, and I don't mind saying, I met this fabulous woman sitting next to me named Gail. But I was not looking for a relationship. And this journey happened, and she called me. And the next thing you know, she said she wanted to take me out on a date. And I said, well, what kind of date is that? And she said, I'm a lesbian, I'm gay. And I didn't think anything of that. I said, fine. And then she said, then I said to her, well, who's paying for this? She said, well, I'm going to take you out for dinner. I'm going to pay for everything.
I should have known then, right?
So I hadn't been on a date with a woman that somebody's paying for everything. I said,
Right.
wow, I'll take her up on that. And I did. And we just started talking, and it was just so easy talking to her. I had no idea that I was going to fall in love with this fabulous woman. And I like to tell the story. I really wasn't looking for a BMW, but I say that. Black man working.
Yeah, that's right.
So what happened was a BWW who showed up in my life. And I was taking a course, it's a seminar, Landmark.
We were taking course. The way Landmark also worked, it was a class that's coaching you to kind of come out of your shell, communicate, if you were hidden, if things were stopping you, things that you didn't even know were stopping you.
Right.
That was the whole pretest, so you could start to live the life you love, live it powerfully, live it comfortably. Right?
Yeah, this is what is so interesting about it. It's kind of like, you sound like you're a free spirit, meaning, you know, I see myself as a straight woman, and that's what I'm going to be, you know, but you...
But is that a label? Is that a label?
No,
I mean,
I'm just wondering, you sound like a total free spirit. I'm
I
admiring
really
this
am
here.
a free spirit.
Yeah.
And I had to call my shrink at the time. He is a medical, he's a psychiatrist, not a therapist. And we had been together for 11 years. And then when this happened, I said to him, I called him on the phone. I said, Doctor, his name is Lonnie, what's going on? And that's when he said, Audrey, you're on your journey. And I said, but look, I have spoken to you. You know everything about me, every detail. For 11 years, I have told you everything. And now, here it is, May, and I just met this fabulous person, and it's a woman, and you what? I must have told you so. I said, no. So when I say I was on a journey, and I was ready, what happened, as soon as I fell in love with Gail, which was almost immediately, wow, I just was open. You know, you come out of that box, we were all in a box at ICE. And I wasn't looking for a romance at the time, whether male or female. I was doing very well, and a friend of mine said, oh, you need romance? I said, no, I'm fine, I'm doing well. You know, it's okay to be without a man, because you know, some women always have to have somebody near them. I wasn't that kind of person. But Gail showed up, and Gail is really a romantic. You know, tonight when I came here, I mean, she opens the door for you. She helps you out, the car. She makes certain everything. Everyone should have a Gail.
I met my husband on Flatbush and Maple in this apartment building that a lot of people knew about, was still kind of new back in those days. But I met my husband, and I didn't know he was going to be my husband, but he walked me. My girlfriend saw that he was smitten with me, right? So she says, Calvin, why don't you walk Tony to her car? And I said, oh, okay. So he walked me to the car. Now, his conversation was whatever. But I will say, his conversation was, you know, but I felt safe with him. I remember that is what it was. I said, you know, I feel safe with this guy who's bumbling around. Oh, he's going to be mad at me when he hears this. With his conversation, he's going to be mad. But we're married for 30 years. We have the dating diva here with us today. Lisa White. Now, you're going to talk to us about, now what is this? How to meet the right man and get the relationship you always wanted. Now, Lisa, talk to us about how to make this possible, because we've got a couple single ladies on the panel that want to know what these tricks of the trade are.
Oh, the tricks of the trade.
Right. I'm getting hot in here.
Okay, I'm a therapist, so I won't say it's a trick of the trade.
Sure.
Different business.
Right.
Yes, totally different.
I like
But
that.
I do think that it's important that we identify, and this is what I usually start off with, is that we identify what kind of relationship do we really want. That's the first thing that I think is very important. I think ideally, you need to identify if you want a husband, if you want a companion, or if you want a booty call.
Say you don't know.
No.
You got to know that.
You
have
need
to
to
know.
You have to know.
Because
Well,
then
that's pretty
it
good, though. I
defines.
like that. So
Yes.
if you,
But
right.
doesn't often a booty call turn into a relationship
It
or
can.
vice versa?
But I don't know. I would not. I would tell you that
I was
I
taught
have
that it
had.
does it. Go ahead.
No. That's a good question.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think that's
good
a good question because I think for some people it can turn into a relationship, and I can tell you that there are people who have started off having sex in the first date, and they're married and have been married for 20 years. I can think of people on my top of my head right now.
Wow.
However,
That kind of defies all that we've been told.
I would not. Right.
Hey, that defies
wouldn't
all
recommend-
good girl type stuff. You know, you got a whole bag.
However, I do not recommend that.
Right.
I don't think that that's the ideal thing.
Okay.
I think that people need to be clear about what they want in the very beginning. I would think that if you want a booty call, it says something different in what you're going to do in terms of how you're going to interact in the relationship. If you want a husband or a companion, it's something totally different as well. Right. A companion may be somebody who does not live with you, but somebody who, and this works, I found that this works mostly for women who are more mature, who have been married before, who may not want to share their space, but still want a companion where they're monogamous and they can go traveling and share common interests in. So for women like that, then I would tell you it takes a very secure man and a very secure woman and very mature people. But that is a different type of relationship. And then if you're looking for a husband, that's something totally different as well.
Now, you made the comment that you don't think, or you made a comment at some point in our relationship, that women know what they want, that's pretty much what the problem is. Right. Could you talk to us about that?
I think most women don't know. I think that they go into a relationship, this goes even back to what we just talked about. How do you define? And what kind of relationship do you really want?
Changes over time.
But isn't that expectation?
Yes.
Lisa?
I think it does, but I think in the very beginning when we begin the dating process, which is what we're talking about, we need to be clear about what we want and honest. So if you know that you are a woman who's a full course meal woman, that is a woman who does not want to have sex, who, does not want to have sex. No, wait. That does not want to have sex freely. No, like a booty call. Right? So if you just want to kind of,
You're a rules girl.
Yes. If you are a rules girl, I call it a full course meal woman, but it's the same thing. Then you know that you can't handle that. And that's fair. So you would not date a guy who immediately wants to go to bed with you, or you would not go to bed with a guy in that sense because you can't handle that. So you need to be very clear about where you're going and what you want in the process of dating. And I think most women don't know. And what they tend to do is they fit themselves around men as opposed to trying to find a man who fits within what they want.
So you're going to move through like the dates who are obviously
No,
inappropriate or not.
Yes, you would not waste your time. That's right.
Right. It's like speed dating.
Exactly.
Well, I would say what I think is that most people don't date. That's my idea. I think most people don't date at all. I think people dating in my head is that you're meeting people in social events and you're kind of becoming friends with them. One of the problems is that we kind of set this tone in our heads. Well, the first guy that we meet is going to be the one, or he seems like that. We're trying to fit.
That?
Women do that.
I think
Women do that all the time.
I think really young women.
Yes, younger women do that.
Young
But I
women
have
do
to be
do that.
honest, ladies. More mature women are doing it as well,
To see
especially
if
the
he's
one.
the one.
Yes, I think that it does not matter. I think it depends on who you are.
The longer I'm married, the longer I believe in arranged marriages. Because I think ultimately, if you stay in this so-called autonomous relationship to be together, you're gonna feel like an arrangement. And by that I mean common values, compatibility, belief systems, all of that moves into how one compromises or how one sacrifices self Sometimes it's about self-sacrifice.
We've been talking about, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? But why don't you first define it for us, and then we can kind of get into how we think about this.
Yeah. Now, of course, I'm of South Asian extract. I'm Hindu. I was born in this country, but I'm the first person, actually, I think I might be the first person in this country, in my family, who was born in this country.
Oh,
maybe the second. I'm a twin.
Oh, I am too. I'm a twin too. Are you identical?
I'm fraternal.
Okay, but all right.
11 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, 10 minutes.
Yeah. But I think because of that, I had a very interesting perspective on the whole story. My family has always practiced arranged marriage, for generations. And I think in our family, it's been defined in different ways depending on the generation and on the perspective of the person who's in it. For example, my grandmother was married at the age of 8. And she was in an arranged marriage.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the only daughter. She was the only surviving daughter to her mother and father. Her mother had, of course, given birth to other children, but in those days and ages, it was very difficult to keep children alive, and my grandmother was the only one who lived. So they wanted to make sure that she was properly settled, of course.
Right.
This is always the parents' wish, is that their child is going to be properly settled.
But
and
isn't it more than just a wish in your culture or
Yeah.
faith? Like this is a mandate, so to speak, or it's a wish. It's a wish for me, but in your right.
Well, as a mandate, I mean, we could also say from this perspective, there are so many women who are like, well, I would just rather have a date with a man. I don't need a mandate. But I would say in India, one of the things that was complicating is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have a very, very strict caste system. And so, of course, in order to make sure that the caste traditions, and within that caste, you have so many different dimensions of culture that are very, very tightly bound to that caste. The language that you speak, the foods that you eat, the celebrations that you have, the rituals that govern your everyday life are very tightly bound to that caste. So in order to maintain those traditions, you have to make sure that you're married.
From another caste would not be able to identify.
Subsect within a caste. I would say subsect within a caste.
Can't marry up?
Like for example, there are I would say on average about 5 different castes that are bound. They're kind of like the feudal system, bound to certain types of I guess the level of society, like the scholars, the warriors, all of that. So within the scholars, I'm a Brahmin. That belongs to the scholar. It's the scholar caste. It's the scholar caste, and within the Brahmins, I am from the Iyengar subsect. But within that subsect, there are 2 other subsects by the kind of design that's worn on the forehead. And so we can only marry within that subsect of the caste.
Now, when you move to a country,
What, 2 men?
when you move into,
But we have lots of kids.
when you move into a country like this one, how does that work here?
Well, so this is what happens. So there's another dimension now. A lot of the Brahmins and upper caste people in general started out migrating as a part of this brain drain in the 50s and 60s. And you'll see most of the countries in the West didn't actually have migration histories until after the Second World War. For example, we didn't have a National Immigration Act until 1952. So within that, I think the first way that migrants came here was there was a quota system, and we had quotas by different kinds of ethnicities. But then eventually during the 1960s and 1965, the Immigration Act started to define different categories. There was work migration and family-based migration, and then there were other migrant categories, students and this, that, and the third, right? So right now, the strongest and most powerful migrant category today in the United States is family-based migration. Which means, and this is something that we're going to get back to later when we start talking about the ways that the migration system and just, certain immigrant communities with extremist practices are using the migration system to kind of and perpetrate violence against women in their communities. Now, basically what happens is now, if I want to get married, if I'm for example, a software engineer in southern India, and I'm brilliant, and I'm skilled, and I'm talented, and I have the wherewithal, and I want to come to the United States to work, it is so much easier for me to come here with my wife, who is an American citizen, than if I apply to a company and I'm sponsored by that company.
Because of the quotas?
Because of immigration quotas and because just immigration
But
reform
I
in
guess my
general.
question was more, okay, say that you've been born here.
Right.
Now, how does arranged marriage play out?
Here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So arranged marriage traditionally, when in my grandmother's generation, when she was married, she married sight unseen. Of course, she was 8.
Right.
What would she have said anyway?
Right.
How old was her husband?
Can I play with your toy horse? I don't know.
How old was her husband when she at the time when she
he was
got married?
15 at the time.
Okay.
Now in that circumstance, he was an old man to her.
Right.
She didn't know 15. When you're 8, 15, 40, what's the difference, right? But I would say in those days, her situation might have been a bit unusual, but in those days, the way that normally would have played out, or the way it played out for her, is she did not move into her husband's house until after she first menstruated.
Right. But I still want to get at how does it feel here when you are doing the arranged marriages? What does that look like now? Yeah.
So right now, I would say,
are they arranging marriages anymore?
They are. So I would have thought, in my situation, I am 35 years old. I'm the first, and I was married 5 years ago. I'm the first person in my family who was born here. I am the first person in my family who did not have an arranged marriage.
Do you think that was because you were here and that we didn't do it?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Right.
Since I've been married, there are several of my cousins' children who were born here, raised here, grew up here, all of whom who have had arranged marriages.
Is that a bad? But is that bad? Let me ask you, Devorah.
There are like
what do you
one or
think?
two.
Because I think that arranged marriages are also in your culture as well, or is it matchmakers?
Yes,
What is? Talk to us about what yours looks
listening
like.
to you,
Yeah.
it almost says to me that every culture has just about the same thing going on.
Absolutely.
And it's very similar.
Yeah.
In the sense of the system and the classes and all that and who marries whom.
Yeah.
But having said that, there is something very secure about having an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
And I actually see the positive stuff about, because you get to parents arrange it. So they
Is it through a
usually
matchmaker?
know.
Do you do it through a matchmaker?
Well,
How do you do it?
only because through a matchmaker, it makes things easier. If it doesn't work out, you can drop out of it and you can just say good.
Like save face if it doesn't.
Exactly.
So kids don't date, so there's no dating.
Well, of course there is.
All right, so let's hear
It
about it. Let me
depends.
finish.
There are
Let me hear
cultures
that.
and there are different sects, just
Right.
like you said.
Right.
So in my particular sect, there is definitely dating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Until you feel you need to and you're sure to say, yes, it's time.
The best relationship advice is the relationship advice I gave myself, which is, and my mother tried to, but I wasn't listening to her at the time. The love that gets you married isn't the love that keeps you married. And it is so true. It's kind of like with the presidents. Campaigning is not like governing. We will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.